All right, Mets fans. Today we're going to be joined by Pete Hoffman of WFAN, my co-host Dan Bartels of the New York Post, as we break down the Brandon Sproat promotion. What does it mean for this current rotation? How is it going to affect us potentially in a wild card round? What's going on? Is Brett Batty finally the established third baseman? Is Juan Soto currently in the MVP conversation? And what the hell are we going to do with this bullpen in the back end? We're going to get to that and a whole lot more next on Metcast. All right, Mets fans, as we just laid it out, obviously by now you all know Brandon Sproat has been upgraded, brought up to the major league level. He's allowed 2 or less earned runs in his 9 out of his last 11 starts. That one bad start that brought up his ERA was not a start. He was the reliever after a guy pitched for an inning. Am I counting that? No, you throw a guy out of his routine. I'm not totally deep into that, but we've been hearing about Brandon Spro, Pete, literally for 2.5 years since he was the high-end pick coming out of Florida, relief pitcher / starter. Nobody knew where he was going to be. We heard reports in the offseason, Andy Martino saying some scouts thought that he may be more of a reliever. Same thing with John Heyman was talking about that. But the Mets are going to give him his clear shot. A brilliant outing. His last outing seems to strike out the world. His slider now looks like it has a little bit more of that bite, that control that they were looking for at the next level. What is your immediate reaction to Brandon Sproat being brought up?
I mean, thank God we finally have somebody that can maybe pitch more than 3 innings and not give up any runs. I mean, listen, there's a lot of pressure on the kid, which I don't want to put on the kid. Same thing with Jonah Tong and even Nolan McLean too. I don't want to do that, but it feels like there needed some sort of spark because this pitching staff has been so brutal. And it started with the beginning of the season too. Like we got lucky that they were pitching to a low ERA and weren't allowing any runs, but there was no deep into games and going 7 or 8 long. So we were dealing with 4 or 5 innings with these pitchers, and Brandon Sproat is going to come in now, and he's going to follow with the Nolan McLean and Jonah Tong. He's going to be pitching deeper into the game because that's what they do. That's what they know how to do. They know how to attack the strike zone, and they're kind of young and don't care about anything else, but let me just attack these hitters. That's what I know how to do best. I'm not going to sit there and be cute. I'm not going to try to see if I can get them to swing outside the zone. I am just going to attack. And Brandon Sproat brings a little bit more of a fire that's needed because it put the pressure on the vets that are here right now, whether it's Manaya, whether it's Sanga, who might get called down to the minors. Everybody is kind of on blast right now because these guys are getting called in. And I think you're right, Ray. The fact that he was kind of had that last start with there was an opener before he kind of went in. I don't like how they did that. He is a starter. He's a starting pitcher, and the Mets finally called him up. We get to reap the benefits, hopefully.
Now, right out the bat, I almost feel like it's almost not fair to him, Pete, at this point, because we look what happened. You have Nolan McLean coming up. 4 starts, 1.37 ERA, blowing away the world. Matt Harvey comparisons, Jacob deGrom comparisons. The guy's got great control movement. You see Detroit. We all saw the broadcast saying, what was that? In regard to his sinker, his curveball, his slider. He seems to be more of a polished pitcher. And then you have Jonah Tong, who I think is still a little bit raw, but we were there. Us on Metcast covered that live from the game. You saw him. He's got that not immaturity, but that kid-like, I'm not even supposed to be here. I'm going to let it fly. I almost feel it's unfair to expect that Brandon Sproat's going to come up, and when he pitches on Sunday, he's going to go 7. He's going to go 8, striking out the world, not allowing any runs. We're just looking for a normal start at this point. At least I am, because I'm looking for somebody to come in and replace Sanga or Manayan. I'm shocked to even be saying that.
Well, listen, that's kind of what I said about Jonah Tong, too. I was on a different podcast the day that he started, and they asked me how deep you think he'd go. And I kind of underestimated how deep he'd go, but I was like maybe 4 1/3, and he might get roughed up a little bit, which, again, technically he didn't give up any – he only gave up 1 earned run, but it wasn't the best start. because the lack of defense, which is still a problem today. And again, I usually am more optimistic with how Pete Alonso and Lindor do, but that wasn't a great showing. But that being said, I try to put take a little pressure off these guys, because you're right. Like, it's unfair for us to go in there and be like, oh, the savior's here. Here's Brendan Sproat. Or look what Nolan McLean's done. He's 4-0. The last time that's happened, or the two other times it's happened since 2010 is Chase Anderson and Garrett Cole. Like, it doesn't happen often. And again, wins are a different stat these days. People don't really even count wins, but whatever. The fact is, he's doing it. He's pitching well enough that the team is winning. That's the most important thing than anything else. I don't care if that he gets the W, the Mets are winning. And he legitimately, Nolan McLean, his last start, went and showed his guts, and that first inning struggled, but did something that no other veteran starting pitcher on this team has done. He got right. He was able to right himself, fix what was going wrong, and go 5 more innings with shutout baseball. I don't expect Brandon Sproat to do that. And I don't expect him to go and give a shutout. I just expect him to go out there and give the fans a little excitement that we have fresh blood, because we can't, I don't want to see the same thing every fifth day. I don't want to see Manaea go out there and, go 4 innings, strike out like 8 guys, but then all of a sudden hit a wall and give up 5 runs in 2 seconds. Can't watch that anymore.
Now, when we're talking about Sean Manaea, Pete, I'm on that level where in the offseason, and this is recorded, so it's all on document, I was very nervous about paying the guy, and I kept saying, I understand the new arm angle. He's 32 years old and finally put it together, and you're going to pay him with the likes of the top 15 pitchers in this game, and it made me very nervous, but I also had to reconcile with, what is Billy Epler prior to David Stearns or any of those guys, the Zach Scotts, the Sandy Aldersons? This farm system hasn't produced a legitimate frontline, or dare I say average starting pitcher since those guys came up almost a decade ago. That's what we're looking at. And it's like, that's kind of where he's stuck right now. So he had to lean on the older guys, and it's kind of bit us in the rear end. You have Sanga, who's in his 30s, Manaea, who's in his 30s, Peterson, who's about to be 30, Frankie Montas in his 30s. Literally everybody up and down the lineup has 1,000,000 miles on them. And then we sit here and wonder, why is Sean Manaea breaking down? Why is Kodai Senga inconsistent? Always hurt, it seemed. He was hurt in Japan all the time. Then you have Frankie Montas. Literally, Pete, how do you make sense of a move like that, considering he's been hurt his whole career? We watched him do it in the Bronx. That is infuriating, knowing he's going to be on this team next year at $17.5 million, but we put that to the side. Sean Manaea, are you willing right now, with 2 years and $50 million on this contract, if Spro comes up and shows out, are you throwing him in the bullpen, or are you guaranteeing him a start in one of these 3 games? I mean, we're really at that point where it's September, baby. We got to make up our mind.
It's funny because Evan Roberts on our Rico Bronya podcast, every episode right now, we go in and kind of say, where's our feeling with the starting rotation when it comes down to the playoffs? Who are you starting? What are the guys? And we just have to pick 3 names. And I go, at the moment, and I'm not a little bit facetious, but for the most part, some of it's kind of serious. McLean, Tong, and a bullpen game. There's no one I trust. You could say Clay Holmes right now, but I don't trust. He doesn't have much stamina left in him. I really don't think so. But you're right, Sean Manaea. I mean, what are we doing? And it's not his fault. I don't know if he's 100%. I don't think they were between Sanga, between Manaea, between some of these guys. I'm not really sure if they're 100% healthy. I just know they needed some arms, and they didn't want to go trade for anybody. They didn't want to sign anybody of significance in the offseason. So it felt like the pressure was coming on like, hey, dude, we got to speed up this process. We gave you enough time. We did well enough, but we need you to come back. And that's why he's here. And I'm not trying to make an excuse for him, because he still has some he's got swing and miss stuff, right? We know that. He's kind of always had that. That's why we saw him in the past, even with Oakland or whatever they're called now. He had his moments, but he's not there right now. He's not 100%, and that's why I think he's struggling. I don't really want to see him start a game. I really don't.
That's crazy.
You wouldn't consider Peterson, Hoff?
What? No, not the way he's pitched the past few games. Honestly, dude, and not trying to criticize David Peterson, being like, "Hey, dude, he's had his moments this year for sure." But now he's got to give me a start where I can see him go back to where he was, because he had that moment where he was going 6, 7 innings deep every time, and it feels like he's hit a wall, and now he can't get out of like where this rut that he's in. And I mean, come on, what was the last game against not Miami? Was the last game against Miami?
Yes, Miami. 2 innings pitched, 8
Saturday.
earned runs. The month of August, his ERA was a 6.68. In July, it's a 1.05. So what are you getting here?
And to be fair, I know everyone's killed Peterson for that game, and I want to go back to that game really quickly, because the first inning where he did give up 5 runs, there were some defensive flaws, some of which were his own. I mean, he tried to get that one ball that should have been an easy double play. Should have just let it go to Lindor. He didn't, and then there was just like one after another. There was another error that took place that allowed some base runners to get on, and then eventually turned into a big inning. Nimmo not catching the ball in the outfield. So there were some things like Peterson did the right thing. The ball went to where it was supposed to. He pitched the right pitch. They were set up properly, and then they just failed. And that's what's been going on lately, is the defense has kind of been regressing a little bit. So that being said, like, you're right. Like Peterson, I have a little bit more faith in him than a Manaea, and definitely Kodai Sanga, and even a Holmes. But he needs to give me another start that I can believe in him again.
Before we get off the topic of the starting rotation, too, a couple quick ones, and then we'll get to the bullpen. Sanga, right? Like, he has that demotion, still up in the air at this point. Do you see that happening? At this point, with Sproat being called up, I don't see what you really do with Sanga at this point. He kind of has to bite the bullet and say, I'm going down to AAA, work on my stuff, and who knows when he's back at this point.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, at this point in time, I don't want to see him coming out of the bullpen. I don't think Kodai Sanga is effective in the bullpen. And it's not because I don't think he has good stuff. I just don't think he's built to come out of the bullpen. We talked about Brandon Sproat, the last start he pitched. Came out of the bullpen, it didn't work out well. There's some guys that just aren't supposed to come out of the bullpen. They have their routines. It takes him out of their. Listen, he can't pitch on he needs a certain amount of rest to begin with. So, like, Sanga is a special creature here, but that being said, I think it kind of actually is better for him. Like, go down to the minors, get your head right, get everything right, and come back up and be a freaking ace, dude. Get back to where you once were when you first got called up. And he has that stuff, but right now he lost it. And that's the crazy thing, guys. It's not that they were always terrible and that they got it wrong. Like whether it was Billy Epler or Steve, whoever it was that wanted Kodai Sanga specifically, it's not like they got it wrong. He was a good pitcher at one point in time. His injuries are a problem for sure, but now he's lost it recently. That's the issue. And until he gets it right, he can't go into a playoff game pitching the way he has been.
Yeah, and then you run into an issue where you're kind of dealing with some of these piggybacks in the playoffs too. I mean, maybe you see Manaea and Holmes or something like that, or Sproat and McLean get piggybacked. I mean, that's kind of what we're running into at this point, but it's tricky, Hoff. I don't know if you had any piggybacks in mind, if you even are a fan of them, because I know some people say, I just want to go to the bullpen after my starter's out of the game. But again, I don't know what you do with the Holmes. I mean, this guy's lived and died being a reliever most of his career. I'd put him in the middle innings. If you get only 4 or 5, God forbid, out of McLean in a playoff game, I mean, I might go to Holmes for a couple innings, but I don't know how you feel about any of that.
I mean, I think I like Holmes more in the bullpen than I do as a starting pitcher. I don't think he's a glorified opener. He gets the job done to the 5th inning, but that's on a stretch, man. You know what I mean? Like, but one thing I have been thinking of, and I did this in the beginning of the season with Evan. I told him, I'm like, I think that we have too many glorified openers. We might as well just split the time with guys. Like, piggyback like we've just been talking about. But I was saying doing that the whole rotation because they can only go 4 innings. So you just sandwich the two together, get to Diaz. I mean, that might be effective. But now I've been thinking about this even more in a ridiculous way. I mean, because they do have so many starters, quote unquote. You know, take away McLean, take away Tong and Sproat because we don't really know what they are yet. But I don't even want to include Peterson, but I have to right now because he's been ineffective. But with Sanga, with Minaya, with McGill when he comes back, like if you have to take 3 of the guys and just put them all in a game together, that might not be the worst idea. Think about this. You know, you start with Sanga for 3 innings, then you go to Minaya for another 3 innings, and then whether it's Tyler or McGill or Clay Holmes or whoever it is, and then guess what? Here's the key part. Yes, that's wasting 3 pitchers in your out of your 13 that you have on the team, but you should then be able to get them back in a game sooner. Like they don't need full rest for pitching 3 innings. They should be effective and go 3 innings and say only give up, only pitch like 60, 70 pitches. In Little League and other leagues, like when you're pitching 70 pitches, you're good to go in 3 or 4 days. So if that's a new philosophy, these guys should have quicker turnarounds.
It's a good point. It really is. But that rotation, we'll figure it out when we get to the postseason. A lot of glorified openers. You're 100% right. This bullpen, Hoff. Oh, man, this bullpen. I want to start with Ryan Helsley because that was the big, story yesterday, right? Comes in a 3-2 game. Mendoza, I don't know what you're doing in that situation, but it is what it is. Helsley has a 16 ERA in his past 10 appearances with the Mets. It's been ugly.
It's that low? 16? I thought it was higher.
11.45, I believe, since being traded to us.
Dude,
Right.
he's been terrible. Yeah,
It's been bad. So what is the future? I mean, I clearly he's out of New York after this year, but what is the near future with a guy like Helsley? What are you doing with him, and why is he even being put in these situations?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at this point in time, I'm at the point where I don't think he's got any options. I don't know if he does or not, but if he does, you send him down. If not, I'd almost give him his walk-in papers and say, see you later. And it's not because I don't think the guy's talented, but again, this is the same thing. Like where Sanga and everybody else, like we need to try to fix these guys because they're here for a couple more years, right? Well, Helsley, we're not really attached to. And at this point in time, if we can't get him right in the next 2 weeks, and there's no time to mess with him too. Here's the thing. Like, we don't want to see him, Helsley, at all, because if we see him, it should be a blowout. It should be some sort of blown out game that Helsley's pitching in. We can't afford to have Helsley fix it in these tight spots, but that's where he comes in. Even when you're down a run, it's like the game is over because Ryan Helsley is just throwing freaking beach balls over the plate. It's disgusting. But that being said, like I'm down to, again, I think there's 2 options. I don't know. I didn't look to see if you could option him, but that's what I would do. I would send him down and work on him the same way you want to do with Sanga. If not, I think at some point in time, you just have to cut your losses and say, we're going to DFA you. I don't know if there's anybody better in the minors, but there has to be, right? There's nobody else that's worse than this.
Well, you could think about a guy that a lot of Mets fans been throwing around. Dylan Ross in the minors, he's 2-0, 2.44 ERA, and over 48 innings pitched, he's got 72 strikeouts with a 1.17 whip. And that's what I look for because obviously he's got a higher walk rate, but can you really be? And you know what's funny? Because Helsley's been so bad, a guy like Stanek gets a complete pass with his 5.5 ERA. He looks like the Messiah out there. It's absolutely nuts. And I'll tell you this, and I got a lot of heat for this because this is the video I made yesterday. I got a lot of viewers coming back at me, and I'll stand by it. When do we start holding Carlos Mendoza accountable for the way he's handled his bullpen all year long? He's always pressing the wrong button, Pete. At least that's what it seems. And how do you justify bringing in a guy with 11+ ERA in a 1-run game when, Pete, let's be real. If we're honest about fighting for the division, which clearly the Mets have other things that they have in mind, that is inexcusable to bring this guy in. And then I got to sit post-game and listen to Carlos Mendoza say he's a big league closer. We know what he could do. And everybody, think about it, everybody's by their locker getting these same questions, having to defend not only Ryan Helsley, but the moves made by Carlos Mendoza. I have full faith in Mendoza. I have full faith in Mendoza. I am so tired of hearing the player talk. And look, I like Mendoza. I think he's an okay manager. I don't think he's great. He's not Buck. Definitely not Terry. Close friend of the show. Love Terry. But not Terry. But he's got a lot of flaws in him. And for me, he's great with the players and the relationships. You want to say that, fine. But can we call a spade here? We've been saying it for a while, and maybe it's changed. Maybe it's taken a while. But there's been something wrong in this clubhouse for 4 months now. We've all felt it. The aura is off. Maybe you say no, but from everybody I've spoken to, there's something off in that clubhouse. And maybe it's just a bunch of guys who haven't gelled yet. Now they're finally gelling. Maybe that's just it. You got a lot of moving pieces. Winker's not here. Series started. He's gone. You trade for an outfielder. Soto's brand new. You know what I mean? You got a lot of moving pieces. Pete's worried about getting another contract after this year. Alvarez is up and down. He couldn't hit. Then he comes back. He hits. He gets hurt. A lot of moving pieces. I understand. Maybe that's the reason. But using Ryan Helsley in the 7th inning the way he was used yesterday is inexplicable because yesterday, you're trying to take care of and sweep arguably the best team in the American League, the Detroit Tigers, who everybody had us losing 2 of 3 of or getting swept. This was supposed to be the start of the big bad road trip, followed up by Cincinnati, who we'll get to later on in the show. But how do you explain Carlos Mendoza's move yesterday?
So, I mean, listen, going to Helsley. Now, Mendoza only has so many options. Let's be serious. True. Tyler Rogers, who's been effective, I guess. I mean, he really hasn't been. I don't think anybody realizes this. He's really not as good as we were sold on. Like in San Francisco, everything was his numbers were so low. He was so good. But so far with the Mets, like a lot of soft hits, he's been coming in big spots to like save the day. You're talking about with decisions by Mendoza. It just he can't make the right one because there is no right one. That's the problem. Maybe it's because he's not getting the feel anymore. And here's part of the problem too. Hey, you gotta go to bed. Sorry, my kid's getting yelled at.
Story of my life.
Yes, and have a good night. All right, buddy. But here's the deal, right? Like. You have a situation where there's nobody that he can rely upon. Tyler Rogers comes in and is giving up big hits in big spots when he's supposed to be shut down, lights out. And he's not a lights out guy. He's just a soft contact guy, gets in the ground balls all the time or whatever the case is. Then you have these pitchers who can't go deep in the game. So you're trying to save your bullpen. I'm sorry. I'm just as confused as Mendoza. I don't know what to do half the time because there is no easy answer. The easiest answer is get a starting pitcher that can go deeper into games. Put yourself in a situation where you don't have to worry. It's the 4th inning and there's a runner that's on already that gets on to start the inning. Do I have to take out my starting pitcher already? Let me try to let him go. Because basically what it comes down to, and I said this earlier in the season when they was trying to push Griffin Canning, I think, to like the 5th and 6th inning. I'm going, once you get to the 5th inning with Griffin Canning, you're going batter by batter. I know that's not a great success rate. I know that's not what you want to hear. But at this point in time, I don't trust these guys to go deep into games, but they were winning and they were successful and they weren't blowing up yet. So it was okay. But going batter by batter, it may sound ridiculous. But in the 4th inning, you might have to do that. In the 5th inning, you might have to do that because you can't allow yourself to get these situations to load the bases and then all of a sudden, what am I going to do here? My pitcher definitely doesn't have it who's on the mound right now, but I'm going to go to a bullpen who's about to light, gasoline on the fire. Can't do that either. The Ryan Helsley thing is, though, I don't know if he's got any more options of who we can go to because he keeps on burning people out. They've been burnt out for 2 months, 3 months. It's ridiculous. And Ryan Helsley, they have been working on things. That's the one thing they make it sound like they know that he's tipping pitches. When you listen to Gary, Keith, and Ron, even though the other day was funny, Gary said it again. It sounds like everybody knows or looks like everybody knows what's coming. And Keith goes, I don't know if that's the case. Like almost like we said,
he can only throw his fastball for a strike, Pete. It's the only pitch he can throw for a strike.
Right. You could throw a ball 102 miles per hour, but where you putting it is the question. If you're putting it over a plate, these guys can hit it. Now, here's the one thing I do want to say about Helsley, which to your point, Ray, he's given up so many hits and so many base runners, but this is not a shock. When he came to the Mets, his whip was a 1.39. Right now, it's a 1.64, I believe, is his whip currently between the Cardinals and the Mets. Yes, it's going up. That's not good. But last year, his whip at the end of the season was 1.10. He was a 1.39 when he came to the Mets, which meant that he had a lot of runners on base. There was a lot of contact. He doesn't walk that many guys. So how are they getting on? They were hitting the ball. So clearly he wasn't as lights out as he was last year. And that's why Cardinals like, yeah, sure, take him. No problem. No skin for our ass. And that's part of the problem is that, we see something that looks like it's good because he's the closer. This is an easy upgrade, but it's not anymore. It's not what we think it is. And I think, honestly, Stearns tried to be a little too smart this offseason and during the trade deadline. I think he failed a little bit too much.
Sure. Finally, somebody in the media I'm not going to name who we've had on. We have on a lot of people in the media. Everyone thinks, Stearns did okay. Look, at the end of the day, did it work or did it not work? Everyone says, and I don't like using this excuse, and Dan knows how I am with this. I fire it up, whatever. Just because everybody thinks it was the right move at the time, you can't use that to justify it being the wrong move. David Stearns is the highest paid executive in the history of sports, $10 million to make these decisions. And let's be real. So I know two scouts that are currently in MLB, and I talked to them both about Jesus Baez, and they both said, we really like that kid. We think he might not be, Miguel Tejada at shortstop, but we project his bat to definitely play at the next level. You gave up pieces of significance. And I'm not going to say Drew Gilbert's going to be a stud, but he looks pretty damn good. And as it takes us to our next segment, everybody's worried about these Cincinnati Reds. Oh, it's the Reds. It's Dela Cruz. It's, all these guys over there in red. And you look up, I'm like, but the Giants are right there. And they're playing Colorado. Look at the Giants schedule. We got to fear two teams right now. And it gets me to this next weekend. And something that also ticked me off with the team, I'll bring it to your attention, Pete. As you can tell, it's probably a lot. But you look at the standings right now. This next series could determine the entire season, at least for the Reds. If the Mets bury them, their season is over. But if they take care of business with us, we could be looking at a 1, maybe 2-game lead at most heading into Philly. I mean, this is some big things, and this is what takes me to my next moment. And I would love to get your opinion and Dan's opinion. Why on earth would you throw Nolan McLean a second time against the Phillies in 2 weeks when you may be facing them in the playoffs in just a couple weeks from now? You have Brandon Sproat on regular rest. Just throw him because right now, it's very safe to say, Game 1 or Game 2, he is going to be starting, Nolan McLean. Why give the Phillies a second look at him so they could face him 3 times in 1 month? It makes no sense. Maybe you feel different.
I don't feel different. That was kind of like my one saving grace of why getting these young kids in and why I would start them in the playoffs, because maybe this is what the Mets need. This was Stearns' plan the whole time of, let's just get by. We'll call these kids up, and no one's seen them before. So by the time we get to the playoffs, people are still scratching their heads of being like, what are we looking at? How do we approach these guys? How do we find a way to crack them? And, to allow the Phillies to get that opportunity to see McLean multiple times is definitely a benefit to them. It ain't a benefit to the Mets, that's for sure. So, but on the other hand, I see where the Mets are saying, we still want to try to win the division. I don't know why. I don't care about the division. I haven't cared about the division at all. Not trying to say that we shouldn't have goals of winning the division. Of course we should. But there's no chance they're doing it this year. They've just been – Ray, You talked about that we're going up against the Reds and that we can put them in their grave. When all season long have the Mets done that to any team? When have they, when they faced the Braves multiple times, when did they go and just, put the last shovel of dirt on them and call it a day? They don't do it. They've had ample opportunities to do that against many teams. Get a sweep. They can't do that. They can't finish off teams. So
can't beat Miami.
Yeah. Oh, dude, please. That
we were there for that series, by the way. What a freaking disaster.
That series was more frustrating than anything else because you just have the sweep of the Phillies. It was unbelievable. Again, you got Nolan McLean that you're like, oh, this guy's amazing. He's the only guy getting your wins. It's stupid at this point in time. But again, I think you're right. I don't think that they should allow him to pitch against the Phillies again. Give him the Sproat. Give it to his tongue. Let him see Clay Holmes again. Let him see Manaya or let him go beat Kodai Sanga again. Let's just bury Sanga while we're at it. I don't care. Do not allow them to see McLean again because I do think that's probably our best weapon going into the playoffs is the fact that they haven't seen these young kids.
And he may be one of those saving graces, Hoff, but let's be real. If you were to name, and I said it after the second game, and we said it the other day, Dan could attest, we have a new ace. He is the ace of his staff right now. Because if there's, who else do you trust? Tung's got to do it a couple more times. And I think, look, I'm going to get killed for this. I think there's a chance Tung gets lit up at one of his next couple starts. And that's only because you go back and you watch in-depth film the way that we do here to try to bring you guys all that content. He left a lot over the plate. He just did. His curveball, they weren't expecting it. It was over the plate. And let's be honest, he got a couple favorable calls from the umpire. Now, I love Tung. I think he's got the best stuff. I've been saying that for a while, but he's raw. He's a baby compared to McLean. These guys got 2.5 years at the pro level over him. Sproat's going to be 25 this month, and he's just turning 22. There's a big difference when it comes to that. So I would not be shocked. I'm not going to predict he's going to. I wouldn't be shocked, but I wouldn't rule it out because he's one of those kids that I could see in a playoff game really digging in and getting us a few innings that we need. But right now, it's like the only guy that I trust to go maybe 6 or beyond is him. Because when you look at Sean Manaea, we did a breakdown the other day. Sean Manaea has yet to go past five innings more than once this whole season. He's got 11 starts. That is an issue. And we keep running him out there as if we're just going to keep banging her. I'd rather see, I can't believe I'm even saying, I'd rather see Tyler McGill. Anybody. Throw him in the pen. And one thing, Sean Manaea has been, outside of the last game where he gave up the leadoff home run, very effective early on, Pete. He loses it in the fourth. The fourth inning's been our kryptonite for literally 2 months now. Maybe he's the guy where you say he plays that Seth Lugo role from a couple years ago. You have a guy like Sanga who loses it in the fourth or just suddenly loses it. I could bring in Sean Manaea for 3 innings or 4 innings, dare I say, and get some big outs and big spots, but they got to establish another starter, and I'm hoping to God that it's Brandon Sproat.
Well, like I said, this is why you have to start thinking about sandwiching guys, and I'm all for it because I just can't you have to expect that your starter these days, if it's not Nolan McLean, is not going deep, and that's terrible because this team, even at the trade deadline, think about what David Stearns thought he was doing. He thought he was adding 3 major arms, even with Soto included in there too. Soto, Rogers, and Helsley, they'd cover the 6th, 7th, 8th inning and get you to Edwin Diaz. It's just not the case. Edwin Diaz is going to have to come into the 6th, 7th, 8th inning himself at times just to get it to him in the 9th. It's impossible to make it work. So, yeah, you need some sort of long reliever, and I do believe that, unfortunately, in the state that we're in right now, you're relying on these young kids and crossing your fingers that they're going to be able to go deep into games. And you're right, Jonah Tonga is going to get blown up soon because he's very raw. He couldn't even locate his fastball that much. I mean, that we saw that ball was getting behind the catcher. I forgot, was it Torrens who was catching that game?
Mm-hmm.
The ball was he was just zipping it by. It was flying all over the place. And he was amped up. Now, the other thing I will say is too, we can't really take that first start and say this is how he's going to pitch because they gave him 2 innings, 2 bottom halves of the innings that they scored a total of 12 runs. So like he was sitting for a half hour. It's never going to happen. So I'm not saying he was, a little bit like he sat too long before he threw, but I want to see him on regular pace and see how he does there. But he definitely wasn't perfect that first game. And if he gets blown up, it's okay because it's something different that we haven't seen. Like you said, I don't want to bang my head going, what are we doing with Manaya or Sanga or whomever it is that we've seen this entire season? I just can't do it anymore. I mean, I'm happy they got rid of Paul Blackburn. Guess what? The Yankees going to pick him up for whatever reason, but at least he's not with us.
Thank God for that.
Paul Blackburn.
Crazy. Pete, we talk about young guys, opportunities that they're given. Brett Batty was given a great opportunity this year. He's run with it. The splits favor him as opposed to Vientos, as good as he's been, but we'll leave him out of the conversation. I'll circle back to him in a second. 338 average in the month of August, 166 WRC plus. Listen, there was news today with Bregman. He's going to opt out potentially with the Red Sox. That's the plan. I'm not all in favor of bringing in an Alex Bregman, but the real question, do you see Brett Batty or any of these 3 guys, Vientos, Mauricio's fallen off a cliff, but as the future third baseman, do you like what you've seen from Batty? Do you like the ability putting him at second, or do you really see him as the third baseman of the future?
I mean, I think the Batty has flexibility, definitely helps out a lot in his favor. His defense, I think, is the best so far of the 3. Like Mauricio is still has his moments. You could be like he could be a stud at third base, and offensively, I think his body's just not. He hasn't filled out yet. I think he may actually transition to a first base because he seems like he's going to be a big guy, and maybe first base DH is kind of like Mauricio's route. But either way, I'm not giving up on anybody. Like that's the one thing I'll say. Like I've made points that I would trade one of those 3 if needed to fill in a hole that we desperately need. Like if you told me, and I wouldn't have done it for definitely Mullins or even Bader or Robert Jr. Like I wouldn't have traded one of those 3 for one of those guys. But if there was an opportunity to get a top level starting pitcher, I'd consider it because at that point in time, especially, we needed a starting pitcher, and that's our biggest bugaboo. We do need other position players too. McNeil gives you a little bit of flexibility in the outfield too. So there's that. But when it comes down to Batty in particular, I still think that like he's not who I want him to be yet. Like everyone's like, oh, he's finally figured it out. He's made it. He's played more games than Vientos and Mauricio, I think, combined. If I'm correct, he's got more opportunities than those guys. And listen, I'm happy he's hitting, and he has hit, but he is too streaky. There's too many times this season, early in the season, I still expect there to be like a slump happening. Like if you look over with the Yankees with Volpe, that's one thing about Volpe is he's just a streaky guy. Batty is not Volpe, thank God, but he has those streaks in him where he will go 5 games in a row with like a couple base hits, maybe hit a home run. Okay, fine. But then he's empty for 6-7 games after that. And that's where we got to fix that. Make it consistent. I want to see that more. The other thing about Batty, and I say this as nice as possible, if in the MLB today, it feels like everybody can hit double-digit home runs. So when you show me a guy like Brett Batty, who's got 15 right now still, I'm not impressed. I need to see like 25, 30 home runs. Then I'll get impressed. Then that drives me a little more like, okay, this guy's showing off the pop. And then listen, if you mix in more doubles too, okay, that's fine as well because I know you got extra base hits in you. But I'm not impressed when someone goes, oh, he's got 15 home runs this year. Yeah, that happens across the board. That's what they're taught to do now with the way that the velocity off the bat, the angles of the way they swing they're not swinging for line drives, which I wish they would. I wish they would swing for line drives because I love base hits. I just want to keep it going. Like I think it was the Philly series where they scored, I forgot how many runs, and they only hit, I think it was a total of 2 home runs in that Philly series. And that's beautiful. Like if they swept the Phillies, they had a high total of runs in all 3 games. and they only hit 2 home runs, that to me means that you were making contact. You were getting base hits, and you were driving people home through with contact, not swing and miss. Like, that's the one thing that I used to love about McNeil when he was that 333 type of hitter. I love the contact. That's what I want more out of Brett Batty. I don't need everything to be like, oh, Brett Batty hit another home run. How do we feel about that today? I want more contact from him. My favorite thing about Brett Batty, what he did the first couple of years, he's been better definitely this year with it. But last year, I thought there was more hope. Early in the season, before Vientos got called up, Brett Batty was struggling, but he started hitting the ball opposite field. He started just going with the pitches and just taking the ball wherever it was given. And that's what I like to see out of Batty, that you could just spray the ball throughout the field. That's what I want to see from him. So I think he could do it. He needs to do it consistently. And until I can say that he's the guy.
We'll get to. Oh, sorry, Dan.
No, sure. That's it. Yeah.
We'll get to our final topic, and we'll get to one or two of our members' questions, guys. If you want to get your comments read, you could always become a member. The link is in the chat, or you could become a member on a desktop. I believe you have to be, but that's how you talk to our guests or us live. I will say this, Hoff. I've been going up and down the standings in MLB, and I'm pretty sure right now, if the season ended, we would be facing the Dodgers of all teams. Because right now, the Phillies and the Brewers have the best records in the National League. So the Dodgers would be falling against that final wild card team, us. If you had your preference, because right now it's only a couple games, give or take, up and down, and we're 5 games behind Chicago from getting any type of home playoff game. So if you had your preference, would you rather Philly or would you rather the Dodgers?
Oh, I mean, I hate this because, Ray, you're like setting me up here. I could say
this is going to get clipped. I'm forewarning you.
I could say what I want to say, and then that gets out there, and then the Phillies fans take that and run with it, and then they'll shove it in our face. Obviously, the Phillies are the team that the Mets just own right now. So, I mean, that's the one that I want.
Hold on, I'm clicking this right now.
But I'm not. But I got to be honest with you. I'm not afraid of the Dodgers either. I mean, they haven't been perfect this year. That's the reason why they're not the best team in the league. Listen, with that roster, with that payroll, you think that they should be, 15 games above everybody else, but they're not. Now, it is funny that at the trade deadline they were trading away people, not adding people. That's how good their roster is. They didn't need starting pitching. They had too much. They got rid of Dustin May. I mean, that's unfortunately where the Dodgers are today, but that doesn't make them unflappable. That doesn't make them unstoppable. I mean, they have plenty of issues as well. They've had their injuries. Their bullpen's been up and down at times. Listen, they're starting pitching. I mean, when everyone's right, they're unstoppable and unhittable. But obviously, Phillies are the ones I want, but I'm not going to back down from the Dodgers either. I think the Mets can beat anybody because they play up to the talent they're going against, which is the problem why they lose to these crappy teams.
All right, guys, we're going to get to some of your comments right now. We'll take one or two of them. Like I said, if you guys could like this, if you're enjoying it, consider subscribing if it's your first time here. But we'll lead it off with Scott. Scott says, do you guys think they should try and move Sanga in the offseason?
Well, listen, I don't think it's going to be easy because they're going to want to get so much for him. I mean, and here's the other thing too. Steve Cohen and David Stearns are looking to continue to bring Japanese players here. Like that's something that they're actively looking to do. So you don't want to give up on those type of players because you don't want to set a precedent being like, hey, by the way, we're going to pay a ton of money to get you here. We want you so bad. But if you suck, we're going to just push you out the door. So I don't know if that's a good precedent to set with Kodai Sanga. I think they have time next year to fix him and get him right and work on a better structure. At some point in time, you have to realize you're in the big leagues here. I understand what you did in Japan, that you needed so many days off in a row and this and that, the other thing. But you're going to have to start to adjusting to us, and we're going to have to work on a better schedule for you. And if it's not going to work that you're going to be able to pitch every fifth or sixth day or whatever it's going to be, and you're not going to be able to go deep in games, we have to have a different plan. And if it's the sandwich plan. Let's freaking do it. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to have a better plan and be upfront with it. I don't think it benefits the Mets to trade him because they're not going to get a lot back for him. And I think it will hurt them with the Japanese market.
And I will add to this. I'm looking at his contract. He's got 2 years plus a third that is a team option. And look what Frankie Montas got in the offseason. Sanga's only making $15 million a year over the next 3 years. So even if you say, okay, a fifth starter or a fourth starter is making 16 to 20 million bucks, then the responsible thing in my opinion, Dan, I would love to get your opinion, keep Sanga, but project him as a fourth starter. And anything you get is gravy. Because if McLean is an ace or Sproat is an ace or Tung is an ace, I would try to bring in a bona fide number one guy. And I would pay for it. Dan was calling for it. He was right, Dan, when he said, go get Garrett Crochet, because if you add him to the top of this lineup with the guys we have coming through the system, now you look, okay, Kodai Sanga's number 4. I got Tung 3, Sproat 5, a bunch of guys behind them in the minors, the Santucci's in them, McGill's, the Cannings, all of them. You're really only looking for a bona fide number 1. You hope Sean Manaea gets it right, but the contract, he's making $15 million bucks. That is chunk change in this league for even a fifth starter now.
I mean, Dan, I want you to go too, but personally speaking, I think we overpaid Frankie Montas, but when you're talking about back end of rotation, like think about Jose Quintana. What did he get?
Yes.
What was his deal?
$4 million?
Yeah, exactly. So I know what you're saying, Ray, but they valued at Frankie Montas to be this guy that he is not even close. I don't know how. I want to know that the layout of that contract and what they thought they were getting and why they thought they were getting it, because they completely overvalued Montas, so much so that, like, when you compare him to like the lower level Jose Quintanas, which is not a lower level pitcher compared to Frankie Montas, how do you put that together? You're talking about a 1-year deal for a lefty who was last year one of the best parts of your pitching staff. And I understand he's got injury issues, he's getting older, but he was so effective and he cost nothing. And yet you gave this guy $34 million for 2 years. That is absurd.
The problem with Hoff, too, that I have is the Mets kind of tanking the value of some of these guys. I'm worried they've done that with Mauricio already, but that remains to be seen. He was injured. You could live with that. To open the talks for a guy like Garrett Crochet, just to open the talks, would have been Sproat, Jet Williams, and Luis Angel Acuna at the time over the winter. It's not a lot to give up, considering where the Mets are right now. I mean, we just are going to see Brandon Sproat. We know what Acuna is. He's kind of just a platoon speedster at the end of a game. And Jet Williams, who knows? But that's why you have to pull the trigger for some of those guys. And look at the Red Sox. They have the ace of the future, and the Mets still looking for theirs. But I don't know. I'm kind of against the whole thing of move Sanga to 4, 100%. But don't bring in another starter, because you have Christian Scott coming up and coming back. He's going to be someone a lot of people looking at. I mean, there's a lot of arms that we
Santucci. And to your point, Dan, think about this. Imagine they would have pulled the trigger. Okay, you don't have Sproat. Everybody else on this team is here. And your top 2 guys could have been Garrett Crochet and McLean heading into the playoffs. Changes a lot, especially in a short 3-game series.
Yeah. And again, too, like, I think that a lot of this is just because, David Stearns is very set in his ways, and he does not want to budge. He does not want to spend big on pitchers. He does not want to trade a lot of assets for starting pitchers. He is very hesitant when it comes down to these veteran guys. And Crochet's not even a veteran. How old is he?
Ooh, 20-something.
7. Entering the season, I believe.
And he's a lefty, so he's a late starter. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. We'll get to 2 more quick comments, and then we'll let Pete go. Buzz chimes in, says, shut down Sean Manaea. Sorry, I saw what you did there, Buzz. Shut down Manaea, send down Sanga, DFA Stanek. Helsley should be demoted to mop-up duty until he gets his act together. Holmes should be in the bullpen as well. Promote Dylan Ross.
I mean, listen, you can keep on calling these youngsters up as long as they're effective, as long as they can come up here and pitch well. I'm all for it. Like, none of that is wrong because it's been the fact that Stanek was supposed to be basically sent away after the Helsley and the Rogers move. Like, that's why the Mets got all those three relievers. So we didn't have to see those same faces that they burnt out or that were ineffective. And now, again, Stanek is still part of this bullpen. Why? Why is he still here? Why are we DFAing, Chris Davinsky every sixth game? Like, what are we doing here? Yeah, I mean, this is part of the David Stearns magic, I guess you could say, that he likes this DFA system where he can go, he can claim somebody or put them on waivers. They don't get claimed. He comes back into your franchise, and then you just send him back up and pitch him for 3 innings in a game to blow out, and Brandon Waddell as well. It's like, just go through the cycle. The amount of guys that they've recycled, Davinsky hasn't earned that. He hasn't been bad where they just got to keep on DFAing him.
Better than Helsley.
Yeah, better than Stanek, better than a lot of guys. But yet we keep on getting rid of him. Why is that? Oh, because the one time that they had him pitch multiple innings or multiple games in a row, there was some kind of stupid thing that they did. He did the job, did exactly what they asked him to do, and then, hey, by the way, go out there again and give us another good inning because we have nowhere else to go to. So just get us, keep us in this game or get us out of the inning or whatever the case is. And he failed. So the one time he fails, that means he's not good enough. But we give Stanek, 30 different opportunities to fail for us. We give Helsley every game another failure. I mean, what are we doing?
The final comment from our member comes from Frank. Appreciate you chiming in, Frank. Mauricio can't hit big league pitching. A lot of concerns around that. He went from untouchable in a 2-week span to what are we getting from in the offseason, Pete?
No, stop with that. First of all, think about this. What did he do when he first originally got called up? He was pretty good when he first got called up. I don't know if he was unstoppable, but he was pretty good. Yes, he's better from the left-hand side than he is from the right-hand side. We get that. But he's also got how many at-bats so far? How many at-bats do we give Brett Batty? So, Dan, to your point where you're kind of starting to feel that Brett Batty's kind of figuring it out now. How many at-bats how many times do we allow Brett Batty? How many years do we say, got to give him one more chance because I think he's got it. We've given Brett Batty so many chances, but Mauricio coming off a freaking major ACL surgery that it took forever for him to recover. It was a bad recovery process. It took way too freaking long for him to recover. But we're going to say, oh, well, he's not it. Now we're going to say that because, I mean, what the hell? Like, our standards as Mets fans are totally jaded, by the way.
Welcome to New York.
We talk about I'm going to throw this in there because I saw Mendoza, and I never actually listened to the clip, so I'm lazy on this, but I saw there was a headline of it was Joel Sherman and John Heyman both do good jobs. I'm not criticizing them at all, except for the question that was potentially brought up, and I never actually read or listened to the podcast, so that's my bad. But there was a quote that came out that David Stearns assured that Carlos Mendoza is returning next year. Why would he not? I don't care what you think of the guy. Why would that even be in question? The guy brought them to the NLCS last year after being 2 months of dog shit. And then all of a sudden, this year, you've been in the playoffs the whole time. You've been in the playoff race the entire time. You started hot. This team has been dead for a while now. There's something off, like you said, Ray. There's something maybe in the locker room. Who knows? But this team is still afloat. This team is still in the playoffs. And you're gonna get back to the playoffs and say, I don't know if we should bring them back. What type of standards do we have these days? And that's the same thing for Mauricio. Like, Vientos wasn't great when he first got called up. I mean, he had some big hits, and then they sent him back down to the minors. And then all of a sudden, he took an opportunity, and he ran with it last year. But if it was up to the fan base this year, we would have traded him at the deadline because he's been terrible. He was hurt. He's had an off season. But the last few weeks, I mean, if it wasn't for Vientos, what would we have offensively, So I can't. I'm not quick on rushing these guys out. Let's put it that way.
I agree. I still think he has more value to than people think. He's versatile. He's a big guy, switch hitter, even though he's struggling against lefties. I almost feel like he's going to be the guy that has a full off season because a lot of times with these knee injuries, it takes longer. It just does. You see it in other sports when guys have knee injuries. It takes a little bit for them to come back. But Dan, final thoughts for you, my man.
First, Pete, thank you for the time. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And final thing too, similar name. We have our opinions, but is Pete Alonso going to be back with the Mets next year? If you could just give, I know it's tough in the moment, got to see how the playoffs go and all that, but what's it looking like for Pete this offseason? Do you have a fact and figure maybe for a contract in mind? If you do,
I mean, I'd sign him life. I mean, I would give the guy 7 years right now. I'd lock him up. Like whatever you want, lock him up. But I don't think he is. I honestly think that the only reason why he was back here is because Steve Cohen was like, let's just get this done. We need to do this. And that's it. Like Steve Cohen stepped in and said, enough of the nonsense. We need him this year. The fans want him. Let's do it. They gave it a very, mediocre contract. Everyone's happy or was happy. But I think Pete is gone, not because he wants to be gone, but because David Stearns at the end of the day does not value Pete Alonso for who he is and what he does. And that's a shame because you're talking about a guy who's easily going to hit 500 home runs in his career. Why not have them all with the New York Mets? Why not have that happen? We talk and discuss about his defense, about how bad it is, right? That's all people say is, oh, his WAR is not good. His defense isn't good. I got to be honest with you. All I hear about is he tells his players, just throw it in the freaking dirt and I'll scoop it up. Like that type of confidence, those type of balls that like, hey, I know what I'm really good at. Don't throw it over my head. Just throw it in the freaking ground. I'll get it for you. And I understand why people think he's a bad first baseman because he looks awkward and goofy and doesn't look attractive while doing it. He looks like a beached whale. I get it. But that doesn't mean he's not effective. Like, tell me where yes, he makes errors, but you know who also makes errors too? Matt Olson, okay? Freddie Freeman, they all make errors. Hey, we've seen, who was was it this year? Cody Bellinger's made errors at first.
Devers in the Giants series looked a mess.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many guys out there. And listen, we love Francisco Lindor, think he's a Gold Glover. He's had a rough season at shortstop. Or we all of a sudden be like, hey, we got to get rid of this guy because he can't field perfectly. It's like what are the standards? I understand if there's some basic stuff that we've seen from him, the throws, the Kodai Senga injury, all that stuff, but he is working so hard to improve on it. I don't doubt the guy to be good, as good as he possibly can every year. I know he's not he's got flaws, but he is a better than average first baseman that no one wants to give credit for, and his power numbers are real. And for what he did in the first half of the season alone with basically carrying the team, I think you should just bring him back. But David Stearns is not going to do it.
It's fair.
The only way I think he is back, Pete, this will be my final words. If Pete Alonso's if he wants to be a Met and willing to structure a long-term contract where he makes lesser money towards the end, knowing he's going to be a DH for the Mets in probably a year or so, because I'm telling you right now, David Stearns loves him some Ryan Clifford. There's a reason why he's promoted to AAA. He's leading the world in home runs down there. They view him as the cheap labor going forward. And we got to be honest with ourselves. You can't have $20+ million guys at every single position throughout the diamond. It just doesn't work. And as
why
pitchers,
not?
So
why not?
It's not going to happen.
Look at LA.
I understand, but look at our payroll where it's at right now, and now add Pete's 30, and now if say you got to pay, we're not even paying one single ace type money. Nobody on this staff's making $35 million.
And he's not going to do it, by the way. That's not going to happen. Like, he's not going to do it. But we'll pay Frankie Montas 34. So, like, I mean,
I agree.
This is the crap that I got to deal with is you're spending money. You have no problem spending it. $17 million is not chump change. That's not back in the rotation type of money. And yet you're going to do that for Frankie Montas. But you're not going to say, you know what, maybe we should have been smarter. We do have these young kids coming up. Let's get these young kids up sooner. And let's just pay freaking Pete. You're going to lose Marte at the end of the year. Winker's gone. You got to think about there's a lot of money coming. Even with Juan Soto making what he is, there's still a lot of money. Yeah, there's a lot of money coming off the books. So there should be more wiggle room. And listen, that doesn't mean that you're going to go and give it all to Pete and then not bring anybody else in. You got to be smart. But on the other hand, Pete Alonso is an asset with Lindor, with Juan Soto, which, by the way, we haven't touched. He's freaking amazing. Yeah. I mean, this guy is the real freaking deal. And this is an off season for him, supposedly. I mean, that's crazy. So he's the real deal. Lindor's real. Pete Alonso's real. If we could just get one of Mauricio, Batty, or Vientos, I don't even care who it is, to actually be consistently good, I think it's time to move on from Nimmo, personally speaking. I know he's a great leader. He is a voice for the team, but my God, he can't play the field and he can't do what the Mets want him to do offensively. They want him to be
for sure.
They want him to be a 30 home run hitter, driving 90 to 100 RBIs. And he does not do that. And he can't do it for average, that's for sure. He was once this guy who was an on-base machine. That's gone downhill because he's trying to put it out of the ballpark.
Yeah, and you know what, Pete? I look at it. He's got 5 years left on that contract. He's the future DH. See, that's the issue. That's where David Stearns, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm trying to look at it from Stearns' perspective, play a little devil's advocate here. If Pete Alonso gets 7 years, Brandon Nimmo already could barely move in the outfield. So in 3 years from now, when Pete's got 4 years left on his deal and he's 34, getting ready to move into a DH role, you have Nimmo who's going to be 34 with 3 more years left on his contract. Soto will be in his 30s by then. That's where I think that David Stearns is saying, I already have my DH is going to be clogged. That's why we saw John Heyman talking about the untouchable with the Mets. That's why we're hearing names like Jet Williams, Carson Bench. There's a reason why both those guys project to be outfielders, and there's only one spot supposedly until they move Nimmo into that Marte role, 4th outfielder, playing every once in a while. Because let's be real, that plantar fasciitis is never going away. Once you got it, you could have surgery till the cows come home. If it flares up, you are screwed. And I think that's a big reason why we've seen the ups and downs with Nimmo. I really do. I think he feels it. It may be a discomfort, so he stops hitting. I mean, we've all seen it,
It's
other
the knee
players
too.
do that before.
Right. It's been the knee too, because it's not just the plantar fasciitis, it's the knee as well. And I've noticed it, especially when it's cold out. He was ice cold with the bat. Like, I mean, he legitimately was terrible in the beginning of the season. And it was like, it wasn't until it started to heat up a little bit where it's like, oh, now you start to see Brandon Nimmo kind of get healthy again or look a little bit more healthy. I think, playoff time comes around. I don't know if he's going to be effective, and that worries me.
You think he might be running differently because of the foot? Like, you always hear about it with ACL injuries and knee injuries. Guys change their gait. Like, that scares the hell out of me, knowing that we have him for 5 more years, and this thing could go at any minute. And it's another 20-something million locked up, and a guy who's probably not going to be healthy. I mean, I like Nimmo. I think a lot of what you said. He's got the leadership. He hits in the clutch, which is not easy to, every once in a while he's got an 8 RBI game or he's red hot for a week or so. And I think he may be better suited as being more of a part-time outfielder as we integrate maybe a Carson Bench next year or a Jet Williams and start using him in that Marte role where, all right, you want to hit him fifth, that's fine, but we'll DH him here or there. And that's why I think you're right. Because I think next year heading into the season, and I know it's far away, we got to see what happens in the playoffs. I see everybody, the chat's blowing off right now, calling me an idiot. I understand. There's a reason why Mark Vientos is here and Ryan Clifford wasn't traded at the deadline. That's it. The Stearns is letting you know what's up. Think that there's no qualifying offer this year. That works big time in Pete's favor, especially the year he's having. And I'm not going to lie. I know Dan said he wouldn't go after an Alex Bregman or, another big name that we may not know in here. I think the Mets will. Think how attractive that spot is behind Juan Soto. You're going to come up 44% of the time, most of the time throughout the league year, and somebody's on base, either him or Lindor. The stats that these guys are going to be able to put up, and it's not just Bregman, but I think the Mets are going to want a guy that, look, Pete's having a great year, but we can't forget, Pete, that the guy hit 217. The guy's been a low 200 hitter for a while. He's having a great year. No one can take that away. But I don't want to get stuck also in the Sean Manaea role where he's having a great season this year and going into his age 31 season, and you're going to give him a set. He said he wants to play till he's 40. You're going to give him a 7-year contract. What are the odds he repeats this year, next year? And I think David Stern says slim to none, and he's going to let him walk. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think that Stearns has his feelings on Pete Alonso, but here's the thing, dude. Like you're talking about, yes, he hit 217 one year. He had a really bad year last year in a walk year. Pressure got to him. He wasn't handling it well. Well, the same pressure's been on him this year. It's basically another walk year, and he's batting 270. And I'm not telling you that he's a 270 guy. He's a 260 guy. He's a 250 guy. In baseball today, that's great. That's fantastic. But what he does consistently is smash the hell out of the ball, puts up almost 40 home runs every year, and he drives in a ton of RBIs. And you're right, and this is what you're 100% right on. I think that Stern sees anybody behind Soto as an RBI machine. They won't be, if they get rid of Alonso, if he doesn't come back, I won't be shocked if it's Nimmo behind Soto, if it's Batty behind Soto, or if they just pick up another like Starling Marte-ish, Jesse Winker-ish type of player this offseason to put over there and just be like, oh, we can get by, because they should put up those numbers and we can get it for half the price.
Yep, I agree. Hoff, thanks so much for joining us and giving us a full hour. I know we weren't expecting to go the full hour, but the conversation was awesome, man. You're always welcome on the platform. Of course. And everybody knows you can follow Hoff at Hoff WFAN over on X, as we love to tweet him and put him in quotes, good and bad. No.
Yes, and I appreciate that. But boys, Ray, Dan, I appreciate you guys. This was fun as always. And listen, in the next month, maybe have me back on and we can talk about the playoffs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right before the playoffs start. Yep. My wife sucked me into going to Disney the week before the playoffs. It was scheduled for Wild Card Week, and I said I will raise hell because I'll be bringing all my equipment to Florida. So we agreed the week prior. So Dan will be holding it down then, but hopefully, look, guys, the division is probably out of reach. Let's be real. But I don't care. I want Philly. Give me Philly. Let's go, Mets. Peace.